Thanks, Masada. So I'm a social psychologist, and what that means is I study social attitudes. In particular, I study prejudice and stereotyping, as well as some other things like moral judgment and their relationship to political behavior. And in thinking about how to communicate that, either when I'm writing a scientific paper or if I'm talking to the media about it, one thing that always comes up, and we've already touched on, I think Andrea touched on this idea a few minutes ago, the sort of ideal goal of being able to talk about scientific findings that show there are certain differences between liberals and conservatives in a way that doesn't sort of become a value judgment, that doesn't start taking a my team versus your team orientation. And that's really, really hard when we're talking about political orientations, more so than almost anything else that at least I study. And I would just throw out two different kind of examples. So there's some kinds of topics in which it's pretty easy to take a more value-neutral approach. So there's tons of research dating back decades on different personality types, different cognitive styles, different problem-solving strategies between liberals and conservatives. And usually that research is summarized as, well, conservatives are rigid in their thinking and liberals are flexible. Now, of course, that's the way it's described by mostly liberal academics. And so it's just as easy to reframe the same scientific facts in a way that's more flattering to conservatives. So you could say conservatives are more principled, and liberals are wishy-washy in their problem-solving strategies. Right? And if you just devised a test in which sticking to your guns turned out to give you more points over the long run, then conservatives would look better on a test like that. Right? So that's a case in which it's we often fail to describe those findings in a very value-neutral way, but it's possible and is sometimes done. But there are other topics where it becomes even more challenging. I struggle with it on a daily basis, especially when you're talking about things like the correlation between ideology and racial prejudice. So in just about every study that's done, if you administer just about any measure of prejudice and just about any measure of conservative versus liberal ideology, you'll find that conservatives score higher on that measure of prejudice. Now, that one becomes very difficult to talk about in a way that's more flattering to conservatives than to liberals. Because in order to do that, you have to sort of take on the perspective of the person who's endorsing these prejudice statements, right? And so, I don't know what the answer is for how to grapple with that kind of issue, but I'd just like to throw it out there that as one case in which, even if we have a goal of being sort of value neutral and non-pejorative in the way we talk about differences in the psychology or the neuroscience of liberals and conservatives, there are some cases in which we're just not going to be able to do that in a value neutral way because the topics we're talking about are, by their very nature, so value-laden. I'll stop there.